oh why do poor white people vote against themselves time and time again? They vote for Trump and the other MAGA politicians only to have every promise broken, prices go up, social supports evaporate. Here's why. First, remember what I talked about recently, the psychological wage of whiteness. That term was coined by W.E. Du Bois to describe poor white folks being paid with social status rather than decent living conditions. They're convinced by the elites that they're better than black folks, better than immigrants, Latinos, LGBTQ folks. They're convinced that being white puts them in the same league as the elites. Of course, the elites know otherwise, but the poor whites buy it because they're grasping at straws. Second, they are convinced that the people they're supposedly better than are the big threat in their lives. Not the rich, not the corporations or the politicians, but immigrants, black folks, welfare queens, LGBTQ, criminals, you know, the usual scapegoats. Third, the elites promise protection to poor white folks. A politician comes along and says, I'll keep those people in their place, or I'll kick them out, or I'll lock them up. Or, more politely, I'll defend your values. They don't say, I'll make your life better. Well, they say it, they just don't mean it. They'll say, I'll make sure they don't get ahead of you. Fourth, they vote for the punishment, not the policy. When a law gets passed that slashes public housing or school funding or food aid, they think, good, that'll stop those lazy freeloaders. And they do some mental gymnastics that make them believe it's worth losing those things for their own families in order to see those problematic black people and immigrants and so forth being punished. It gets to a point where just seeing those guys being punished is reward enough, which is pretty sick, but that's how behavior works. Their housing, schools, and groceries are on the chopping block too, but they blame that on Biden. Always a scapegoat. They get hit by the same policies they were told would punish the others, and they blame the wrong people. The system fails them, but they've been trained to blame the scapegoats, not the cause, which is the rich people, the people they voted for. So they think the problem is still those people, not the fact that they were personally manipulated by the people they voted for. They're basically saying, I'll take the hit as long as you don't help them, or worse, as long as you hurt them. That is the psychological wage Du Bois was talking about, the trade-off between material security for racial status. And that's a crying shame, folks.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you don't miss any of our breakdowns of America's latest political roller coaster. Today, we've got a good one, because the same folks who chanted "Make America Great Again" are now chanting something else. Why is everything so expensive? Now today, we're diving into the growing uproar from Trump voters, yes, the MAGA faithful, who are suddenly realizing that the man they put back in office might not have been the economic superhero they imagined. Spoiler alert, the cape is missing, and so is the stability.
Imagine being a teacher or a principal in a school in a red state which depends on funding, federal funding from the Department of Education, and still voting for Donald Trump. What am I talking about? Watch.
CNN analysis found the 15 states that most rely on federal funding for its public schools in 2022 all voted for Trump.
And I voted for President Trump.
I mean, you're an educator. You
Yes.
didn't vote for Trump eliminating federal funds.
No, I did not vote for that. I voted for President Trump to make America first again. If we have
You fell for a slogan.
cuts, then that's going to mean bigger classroom sizes. I would lose teachers, first and foremost. It's devastating.
I don't think that anyone in our county wants to cut our school funding. I don't think that anyone voted for that.
Do you mind if I ask who you voted for in the election?
I voted for Donald Trump.
We all know and understand that red states, the education is abysmal, that they are always on the bottom of the docket when it comes to test scores, reading levels. They are horrible. And here we have two educators that know that their states, their schools depend on federal funding, depend on them, yet they didn't bother to do the basic research of what their candidate was going to do. They fell for a slogan. Instead of listening to all the times Trump said he was going to get rid of the Department of Education, that he was going to go after LGBTQ people, that he was going to get rid of DEI, that he was going to do all of these things, and looking at the bills that have been happening in red states, instead of actually doing the minimal bit of research, they fell for a slogan and thought, well, I never thought that this would happen. So I guess these red states are just going to have to pick themselves up by the bootstraps, right? Because they voted for this, and now they're getting what they voted for. All my love.
Nothing is better than being MAGA. Here in Florida, let me tell you what we're doing. You see, what happened was Ron DeSantis and all the MAGA legislator here, we kicked out all of the immigrant workforce. We made it clear that they weren't welcome here and kicked them out of the state. That's right, even some of us MAGA business owners voted to kick out our own workers, and now we cannot fill the work. Oh, but don't you worry, MAGA's on top of things, because right now our wonderful legislator is debating on loosening the child labor laws here, because our genius MAGA plan is to replace the immigrant workforce with our children, our Florida children. Doesn't that make perfect sense and just sound wonderful? The policy we support is actually detrimental to us, but we pass it anyway. Now all the MAGA youth is going to be doing construction on your house. Doesn't that want to make you buy a house in Florida? It's not going to be insured, and it was built by a 10-year-old. What could go wrong?
How do you get someone to vote against their interests? In this election, I've heard a lot said, and it deserves to be said, about misogyny and racism. I mean, that would explain a lot. But you know what it doesn't explain? It doesn't explain why a worker would vote to cut overtime pay. It's like, oh, hey, let me work longer hours for less money. I don't know a single worker who would want to do that. We can be manipulated. I want you to think of a stalker. I want you to imagine a man imagining a life with a woman who's not interested in him and thinking it would be good. The idea of being with a woman who doesn't want to be with you, that's a recipe for misery. But what is going on? He's obviously not relating to the reality. What's he relating to? I would say he's relating to the story in his mind that's inducing feeling in himself. That's my best guess, my hypothesis. Well, any of you have ever had a fantasy that gave you joy, that excited you, that made you angry, was erotic? If any of you know that you can feel things based on your imagination, you do understand this. And then it's about people pulling those imaginary strings, like Bernie Madoff, who pulled the strings of the people he manipulated by showing himself in opulent buildings and being with famous people and presidents. I mean, these were all symbolic things. The thing is that symbols we add the meaning to. Back to our stalker. The joy in his life that he is imagining, that never fucking happened. But when he attempts to reach out to the woman he's interested in, and she rejects him, it's like, for him, she's destroyed his happiness, when it never fucking happened. People relating not to the world, but to things they think about the world. And this is vital. Our minds do not talk to our bodies in language. Our mind talks to our bodies in impulses that we feel. And because the feeling is real, we're tempted to think the story is real. We use the feeling as evidence when it's not evidence of anything. Why this is missed is almost astonishing, but if you think about it, every time you've stubbed your toe, Your image of the world was falsified by a reality. Well, I can't help but think that there's a reality that's coming our way soon that is going to falsify the image of the world that a lot of conservatives have had. There's what they think it's going to be, and then there's what it's going to be. Why am I using this story to try to understand? It gives people a way out. You can always fall back to the facts. You can't fall back to what never happened, but you can fall back to the facts and begin again. You know, like when you fuck around and find out and the pain makes you think and you change, like that. And we're going to need people to change. It's going to be hard not to rub their nose in it. You know, did you learn your lesson? Some people you have to turn your back on because what they're doing is too destructive. Some people are so involved in an addiction, you just simply have to withdraw from them. So if you're going to do that, you're going to do that on your own. I can't condone that. Because you're helpless. Everything you try to do is useless. It's just a waste of time. Plus, you're their victim. The other thing about this story is so many of people who are liberal and progressive, they speak in abstractions, which means the person that's hearing, they've got to go from something that doesn't exist in the real world, in the mind. It's a principle, like justice. And they've got to make the jump all the way down to the concrete. With my example, the stalker here, what I'm actually doing is giving people a concrete they've probably been familiar with in some form, either themselves or somebody else. And they're making the jump from that to the principle, to the generalization. Anybody with a mind is susceptible to this kind of manipulation, and it's happening through our devices. I mean, way more than we want to admit. The more we learn about how these strings are being pulled, the better we can adapt to it. And we're going to have to adapt, and we're behind the curve. Because there's a whole lot of people who voted against themselves. And they don't know it yet, but they will.
I live in rural Arkansas. And if you don't understand why people in rural Arkansas or rural America vote Republican, it's because of fear and jealousy. Jealousy that somebody has it better than they do, that they work their asses off, and most of them do. More education, because the education here is at the bottom of the tier. Maternal mortality, low. Education, low. Quality of living, low. Infrastructure, super low. There's no industry. There's no hope for these young kids in rural Arkansas to have a job. We had a chance to vote Chris Jones, an actual rocket scientist like myself who was educated and had a plan to bring jobs and infrastructure to Arkansas. But the people I talked to in rural Arkansas will not vote for him because of his color of his skin. And they weren't nice when they described the color of his skin. So they voted for a sycophant, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is treating this like her personal money bank. There is no infrastructure here. The roads are shit. You can drive 2 hours. So my closest grocery store, besides Walmart, is 2 hours away. So if I go that 2 hours to go to that grocery store, the roads I have to take are barely have enough room for two people to pass each other. There is no cell phone coverage for over an hour and a half of that ride. And there's no hope to get those roads fixed anytime soon because there's no money. I say that, but lo and behold, what did Sarah do as of July of 2025? She has loaned and bought $55 million worth of Israeli bonds. So she's loaned Israel $55 million with a catch to give them 100 more million by the end of the year. When her people are fucking starving, they have no medical care. Hell, most teenage girls here are living at home pregnant with their moms. And they're living at home with their moms and their boyfriends. Because that's how rural America lives. There's nothing for these kids to look forward to. So why would they ever vote Republican? Because that's what they're told to do. $150 million would go a long way to feed, get medical attention, and up our so that our children here in Arkansas don't die in infancy and the mothers don't die in childbirth. And that is rural America. Fuck Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She is the worst governor at, okay, she's second. Our neighbor Texas Abbott is worse, but she's a close second.
In 2 weeks, I'm done. You want to talk about regretting your vote?
I never thought I'd say that, but I regret my vote. I voted for Trump.
I voted for Trump, and I regret it now.
As a Hispanic, I voted for Donald J. Trump. Dude, I regret it so much, man.
I am regretting my vote for Donald Trump.
Who voted for Donald Trump and now I regret it.
A lot of people who were like me voted for Trump and have to account for that.
I regret voting for Trump.
So deeply regret my vote for Donald Trump.
I regret voting for Trump.
I was a dumbass, voted for Trump. It was the worst decision I ever made.
I've seen the light, and I got out of MAGA. A lot of us there have seen the light. We have deep regrets.
I feel guilty because I voted for Trump twice. I feel very guilty because I feel responsible. That's why he's still running.
I was with Trump for 9 straight years. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed in Trump right now.
So here we are, America 2025. Prices are up, wages are down, jobs are shaky, and grocery store checkout lines are basically therapy sections now. But the most interesting part, the loudest complainants aren't coming from Democrats, liberals, independents, or your cousin who reads too much NPR. No. The noise is coming from the very people who marched to the polls, hats on, flags raised, convinced Trump was going to save the economy with the power of, yelling and tariffs. Now, before we get into the meltdown, let's be fair. Everyone makes mistakes. Some people buy cars they can afford. Some people cut their own hair. Some people trust politicians promising the best economy in the world. Believe me, but the level of regret we're seeing now, it's giving season finale plot twist energy. Now, let's paint the picture. Trump's economic policies, driven mostly by tariffs, aggressive trade moves, and a little sprinkle of chaos, have hit farmers, small businesses, factory workers, and middle-class families like a brick wall. Suddenly, the cost of everyday goods has skyrocketed. Import-dependent industries are crumbling, and the jobs that were supposed to be coming back from overseas any day now are, still overseas, still not coming back. And now, MAGA voters are angry, very angry. Some of them are online saying, this isn't what we voted for. Others are calling radio stations, blaming the deep state or sabotage, or even the weather. And then you have the ones in full-on denial, shouting fake news at grocery receipts. But reality, it's not fake. And reality right now is slapping people more than the price of an Uber during a rainstorm. See, elections have consequences, as everyone loves to say when their candidate loses. But now, Trump supporters are discovering elections also have consequences when their candidate wins. And in this case, those consequences include job cuts, rising interest rates, collapsing small town economies, and the sudden realization that tariffs don't magically make foreign factories relocate to rural America. Here's the irony, and yes, sarcasm incoming. These same voters cheered when Trump said he would punish other countries with tariffs. But guess who's getting punished now? Not China, not Mexico, not India. Nope. It's the folks in Ohio buying $8 cartons of egg. The families in Texas paying double for milk. The farmers in Iowa drowning in debt. But hey, at least they got to own the leaves, right? The frustration is so widespread that even conservative commentators are starting to whisper things like, well, maybe possible, perhaps he didn't actually have an economic plan. whispering, though, because saying it loudly gets you attacked on social media, right? That's why maybe they're whispering. And now MAGA voters are turning on each other. Some are blaming Trump's advisors, some are blaming the media, some are blaming Democrats, who, by the way, have no control over anything right now. And some brave souls are even daring to say the unspeakable. Maybe, just maybe, voting for him wasn't worth it. Look, regret is normal. It's humane. But the scale we're seeing right now is becoming a movement. Because when your paycheck shrinks while your bills grow, you don't need a political scientist to tell you something has gone wrong. You just need a calculator, or maybe even a common sense moment that starts with maybe endless tariffs and political chaos and the foundation of a stable economy. Yes. And the widest part of all this, Trump is doubling down. Instead of acknowledging the meltdown, he's pointing fingers. He's pointing fingers at Democrats, at immigrants, at foreign companies, at the moon if he has to. Anything but the policies he himself signed. But hey, accountability isn't really the brand. So where does America go from here? That depends on whether voters, especially the frustrated ones, finally connect the dots between policy and consequences. Will they keep blaming invincible enemies, or will they admit that maybe, just maybe, the man they trusted with the economy didn't quite know how to run one? So as America faces an economic storm that was completely avoidable, one thing is becoming very clear. The MAGA base is waking up to a reality they never expected. And the question now is, will this awakening lead to change? Or will it just lead to louder shouting? So that's my thoughts. What do you think? Are these Trump voters justified in their frustration? Or is this simply the cost of getting exactly what was promised? Do you think this meltdown will shift future elections, or will it fade like past political regrets? And most importantly, what lessons should America learn from this? Let's talk in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Until then, credit belongs to original creators.